Welcome to the Fixing Your City podcast. Here's George Crandall.
Our cities can be fixed. They can flourish again. And you can make a difference. On a cool spring day after a 60-year absence, I drove into my hometown of Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. My wife wanted to see where my Canadian bush stories came from, and I wanted to see my parents' graves. When I left Sudbury, the town had a population of 56,000. Now it was over 160,000. The barren black rock landscape surrounding the city, created by acid rain from the smelting of ore early in the last century, was as I remembered it. But I wasn't prepared for the destruction of the once vibrant city center. The friendly downtown I remembered from my childhood was nowhere to be found. Missing were the grocery store, where I would pick up what my mother needed for the evening meal. The two movie theaters, where I would spend Saturday afternoons sitting in the first row. The toy store, where I had my first job assembling bicycles for Christmas shoppers. The menswear store, where I proudly purchased a red plaid vest. The jewelry store, where I bought my first wristwatch with part of my summer earnings. And the record store, where my friends and I would listen to the latest hits. Everything was gone. The downtown now had drive-through banks, buildings with blank walls at the street level, and surface parking lots. The few remaining historic buildings were diminished by large-scale office building with characterless facades. To accommodate the automobiles flooding into the city, curbside parking had been removed. I was stunned. What I remember as an intimate downtown had turned into an unpleasant, pedestrian-hostile environment. But that wasn't all. The safe, convenient walk from my old neighborhood to the downtown was no longer possible. A chain-link fence blocked the way, erected to eliminate a railroad crossing that was once used by both cars and pedestrians. Now cars traveled downtown on a road without sidewalks, under the railroad tracks. A narrow 300-foot tunnel was built for pedestrians. Poorly lit, damp, with crude public art, it was accessed by steep stairs. A sign at the entry read, "Warning. This underpass is monitored by electronic surveillance. Sudbury Regional Police Service is not a place you would want to be on a dark night." The downtown had lost its character. It was no longer a place to linger. It had become a place to drive through. I had planned to spend a few days in Sudbury, visiting old haunts. Instead, I went to the cemetery, said my goodbyes, and left. I knew that I would never return. But even more importantly, I realized that my hometown was not unique. The tragedy is my town exists everywhere. Fixing Your City provides practical advice about how to fix your city and help it thrive. It describes how change happens in cities and what you can do to become part of the process. It identifies what works and what doesn't in city transformation. It is not a book about city planning and urban design theories. It is a go-to resource of innovative techniques that will guide you in responding to climate change and transforming your city, no matter what its size. Fixing Your City, Creating Thriving Neighborhoods in the 21st Century, was inspired by the public's frustration with the decline of its cities. As one citizen activist put it to me recently, why do cities get screwed up, become worse and worse, and nobody does anything about it? Fixing Your City answers that question and provides the information you need in order to become an effective advocate for change. By the time you finish this book, you will know that you, too, can make a difference. you will have the confidence to take effective action to make your city a more desirable place to live. Whenever I travel across the United States, I hear the same concerns. Our downtown used to be a great place to visit and shop, residents say. Now it's a place to avoid. Buildings have been demolished and replaced with surface parking lots. Heavy traffic and competing big box retail stores and shopping centers in the outskirts of town have sucked the life out of our city center. Our downtown is no longer friendly to pedestrians or shoppers. What can we do? Concerned citizens have many reasons for renewing their communities. Downtown property owners want to lease vacant properties and halt the decline of real estate values. Retailers want more customers. Elected officials and business executives understand that younger and older generations, millennials and baby boomers, want to live in vibrant city centers and will move elsewhere if a community does not provide for their needs. The public wants to show off its hometown to visitors and take them to an attractive, vibrant downtown. Fixing Your City addresses these diverse concerns in the following ways. It provides conscientious citizens with the information they need to make a difference in their city and offers solutions to problems that affect local economies and quality of daily life. It details a planning process that is affordable and applicable to all cities. Residents of cities tend to think of their city as unique. While each city has a particular climate, topography, history, and demographic, and many require tailored solutions for certain issues, I have found that underlying problems every city faces are essentially the same. The pathway to transformation is universal. It provides practical methods for reversing decline and adjusting to the emerging crisis of climate change that are cost-effective, results-oriented, and rooted in the spectacular transformation of Portland in the 1970s. The techniques have evolved over the last 40 years from my personal experience as an urban design consultant to cities across the country and my participation in over 60 successful downtown transformation projects. It includes innovative urban land and transportation ideas that have the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. When applied, these ideas can help cities respond to the impacts of climate change. When I travel to cities across the country in my transformation work, I typically hear 4 basic questions from citizens who are faced with proposed transformation schemes. Together, these questions provide a telling snapshot of the city planning challenges in the United States today. The first question usually comes from a knowledgeable citizen activist who is tired of working hard to create change but getting no results. Is this going to be another plan that sits on a shelf? A plan that never gets implemented? A downtown businessman who thinks he already has the answer to his own question disingenuously asks, what is the market demand for these proposed interventions? A third question is commonly delivered in a public meeting from the back of the room by a red-faced gentleman who stands up and shouts, where are you going to get the money to pay for all of these improvements? Finally, a concerned mother asks, is climate change really going to be a problem? And is there anything we can do about it? The activist is right to be concerned about his or her time will go to waste because most plans end up sitting on the shelf and never get implemented. The businessman is also right to be concerned about market demand. In most cases, downtowns have deteriorated precisely because businesses no longer want to be there. The public, too, has a right to be concerned about having sufficient funds for downtown improvements when there never seems to be enough money to cover even basic needs. And finally, the mother's concerns about the kind of world she will be leaving her children is one that we can all relate to. Plans that sit on the shelf are symptomatic of the sorry state of the planning profession today. In most creative endeavors, there is a prescribed process that, if followed, will produce the intended results. Everyone knows that a cook needs to follow the recipe when baking a cake, Leave out a key ingredient and the cake is a failure. The planning process is no different. The problem is that there is no agreed upon recipe or process for producing a successful city plan. Fixing Your City addresses this problem by providing a straightforward planning process that guarantees success. Too frequently, city officials think a market study that assesses existing and future demand for new development will fix an ailing city. Others think a parking strategy will provide the fix. Unfortunately, market studies and solo strategies will do little to create a thriving downtown. The fundamental problem is the downtown has become an attractive place to visit or do business. Until design plans are prepared that illustrate how to convert a dysfunctional downtown to a place where people want to be, little will change. Fixing Your City identifies foolproof procedures that attract businesses back to the city center. Money is always an issue. At the beginning of the planning process, there seems to be little or none of it available to fund urban improvements. But if a plan is bold and convincing, money will be found. Fixing Your City identifies public projects that induce market demand and describe concrete methods for attracting financial support. As the need to reduce carbon emissions becomes critical, cities will need to make radical changes to existing plans and policies. Fixing Your City identifies actions that mitigate climate change while improving the public's quality of life. The book describes new planning models that support city transformation. Together, these models constitute the fundamental building blocks for fixing any city. The transformation strategy provides a roadmap or process for a successful transformation journey. A radical transformation strategy is a research-driven process for addressing big picture and climate change issues. Neighborhood districts are the basic building blocks for creating a transformation strategy. A neighborhood district can be classified as a mobility-oriented district, MOD, or a bicycle-oriented district, BOD. The MOD is used in population centers where high-capacity transit is available, and the BOD model is used in cities without high-capacity transit. Both models cover an area within a 1-mile radius, use protected bikeways to connect residents to neighborhood centers, and reduce reliance on the automobile through design concepts that promote walking, biking, and transit use. There are benefits to the transformation strategy. The transformation strategy has the potential to significantly reduce auto emissions by eliminating and shortening auto trips. In December 17, 2015 edition of the New York Times, the headline read, "Despite push for cleaner cars, sheer numbers could work against climate benefits." The accompanying article stated the following: transportation, which still 95% reliant on petroleum, is the world's fastest growing energy-based contributor to greenhouse gases, and about 3/4 of the total comes from motor vehicles. The article claimed that the number of automobiles on the world's roads is on pace to double to more than 2 billion by 2030, and that experts predict most of the additional cars will have internal combustion engines which burn carbon-emitting gasoline or diesel fuel. Electric vehicles, the article went on to say, are expected to contribute very little towards the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. In the United States, the short distance between charges will limit their use, while in much of the developing world, electricity will come from coal-fired power plants that are themselves among the plant's biggest emitters of carbon dioxide. The article sadly concluded that there are no good solutions for significantly reducing global automobile emissions. The benefits of improving fuel efficiencies and electric cars will be more than offset by the additional 1 billion cars expected on the roads by 2030. A reduction in automobile emissions from a single neighborhood district will do little to curb global carbon emissions, but if neighborhood districts become the new planning standards, the impact could be enormous. The challenge is for cities to apply the neighborhood district planning models to retrofit the urban environment. Even if climate change were not a problem, the ability to improve a city's quality of life would stimulate the local economy and make the effort more than worthwhile. Two neighborhood district models, the bicycle-oriented district, the BOD, for cities without high-capacity transit, and the mobility-oriented district, MOD, for cities with high-capacity transit, are effective means for reducing the automobile emissions by integrating land use and transportation concepts that shorten and eliminate auto trips. They concentrate land uses that generate travel, such as shopping, employment, and recreation in centers or hubs located within a 5-minute bike ride on a protected bikeway or within a 5-minute walk from the surrounding residential neighborhoods. The MOD has the potential for reducing automobile emissions by 50% compared to the BOD's 30% reduction. Because the MOD is served by transit, light rail, streetcar, and bus rapid transit that carries large numbers of passengers, has frequent arrivals and departures, and provides predictable travel times to popular destinations. The BOD is served by buses, which have to contend with the unpredictability of traffic congestions unless traveling in exclusive rights-of-way. The actions required to achieve a 50% reduction in vehicle miles traveled include establishing the neighborhood districts, the land use piece, an enhanced bicycle network through the creation of protected networks that connect neighborhood centers to popular destinations, an enhanced transit framework with buses and streetcars in exclusive rights-of-way that connect neighborhood centers to popular destinations. Applying the neighborhood district planning models to undeveloped areas of a city is not difficult because roads and buildings haven't been built. Applying the models to developed areas is more challenging because infrastructure and buildings are in place. The process outlined in this book will help reduce the complexity of applying the models under any circumstances. There are other benefits. In addition to accommodating growth and reducing automobile congestion, the benefits of a transformation strategy for individuals and cities are substantial. First of all, your wallet. People who live in neighborhood districts have the potential for more discretionary income by becoming a one-car or no-car household, reducing their automobile fuel expenditures by up to 50%. Your health, another benefit. People in neighborhood districts are healthier because they can leave their cars at home and get more exercise by taking a 5-minute walk to their neighborhood center, taking a 5-minute bicycle ride on a protected bikeway to the neighborhood center, using a bicycle to commute to work. Another benefit is quality of life. People in neighborhood districts will quite possibly spend less time in their automobile and more time with family and friends or on recreational activities. The city benefits. Neighborhood districts offer substantial benefits to cities by providing an annual economic stimulus, often returned as a green dividend of up to $50 million for each neighborhood district, thanks to residents driving less, spending less on automobile fuel, and having more discretionary income to spend locally. More transit riders and increased revenues are another city benefit. And finally, reduced road congestion as more people walk, bike, and use transit is a third benefit. There are a number of other significant issues that can be addressed by a transformation strategy, including affordable housing, gentrification, homelessness, equity, human health, environmental health, and economic prosperity. I'm often asked, is there new terminology in the book? In conjunction with the planning models, a new set of planning terms has emerged. The business case refers to the financial implications associated with a particular land use and transportation plan. It is a valuable decision-making tool for both public officials and private investors. Induced market demand happens when urban design proposals create demand for development in locations that investors have avoided. Game changers are public projects that stimulate development momentum Every transformation strategy should include game changers. Without them, success will be limited. Typical game changers are parks, plazas, and street improvements that attract the public and investment. Urban design fundamentals are design requirements essential to the successful location and design of public and private urban improvements. Response sheets are ballots that quantify public support for proposed urban design schemes and generate public support when used during the planning process. A typical response sheet may contain up to 20 proposed schemes, along with means for a yes, no, or other response. Silver bullets are projects that harm the city. They propose a cure for an ailing city, but are the product of magical thinking and typically end up making things worse. For a city to remain healthy, it is important to dodge silver bullets. A plan to reduce automobile congestion on a roadway by removing parking and narrowing or eliminating sidewalks, for example, would be considered a silver bullet. Planning placebos are planning exercises with little long-term value. They are popular with professional planners because outcomes are seldom controversial. Planning placebos can be expensive, time-consuming, and generally offer little return on investment of public funds. Like any placebo, they do no real harm, but they are a poor substitute for an effective transformation strategy. A visual preference survey would be considered a planning placebo. And finally, shelf plans never get implemented. The primary reason is the planning profession's failure to develop informed urban design alternatives.
Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe to get updates for future chapters.